We're at the home of Dr. Joan Cartwright. She's a composer, a musician, college professor, educator, teacher, using all those words. Publisher. Your experience is vast, as we already discussed. You've been a musician since you were a child, since you were an infant, practically. What has been the impact on your life and others' lives regarding your music, as far as being a black woman in this country, being an educator? How have you been impacted by living in this country?
If music began in the womb, why is it that women only earn 15% of the $30 to $40 billion music industry? And the answer is, music is powerful. And traditionally, in the last, say, 3,000, 4,000 years, anything that produces power, men have captured. And they have pushed women away from that thing. So, my life's work has been to gather women musicians together and get their music heard by multitudes. I have produced 8 compilation CDs of women's music. This is the complete set of 6 of these CDs.
Okay.
And we have the 7th one is digital, and the 8th one is, it looks like this, okay? So, this is a product that the nonprofit organization Women in Jazz South Florida offers. I founded that organization in 2007 because I realized that after having toured for several years and worked with hundreds of musicians on 5 continents, I had only worked with 6 women. So I began to gather the women. Now I have 392 members. Over 200 of them are women. Well, 69 are men. So over 300 are women. And over 200 are musicians. And we collaborate on projects, produce their music. I publish their stories in Music Woman magazine and Music Man magazine. So I'm at the culmination point of everything that I've learned since I began at 4 years old as a musician and a dancer.
What do you attribute your beginnings as a jazz musician?
My father was a music connoisseur. He had a huge collection of records. And by the time I was 12, I knew every song that Ella, Sarah, Billy, and Carmen McRae had recorded. I knew all the music. I had the album Bags and Train, which was Milt Jackson and Joan Cartwright. And I used to listen to that every night before I went to sleep at 12, 13 years old. So by the time I was out of high school, I was pretty well steeped in jazz. My mother, on the other hand, was a finger popper. She liked to party. Daddy was straight up classical music and jazz. But Mommy liked rock and roll. So I had rhythm. I had jazz, I had it all. Even though neither one of my parents were musicians, my mother could play the piano a little bit. So that was where I got the impetus to learn piano. I performed from the age of 4 to 67.
Okay.
So, but I had breaks in between because I did other things.
Right.
But when you're born, when you're a musician, you're a musician. And I've studied music. I have a degree in music.
Right.
I'm one of the a few women in the world with a song book. The thing that a lot of people know but they don't know from the perspective of the vocalist is that everybody loves vocalists. People love singers. Okay, so I've been singing since I was 4. So it's always been a good trip for me because I was a singer. And I'll give you an instance. I was in Marseille, France, and I was invited to hired to sing on a schooner for the wedding of a black woman and a white man, and they were trapeze artists. That's how they met. Could have been Cirque du Soleil or something like that. So I entered the schooner, and there was a table of French women sitting, and they looked at me like that. And then I got up and I sang 3 songs by Ella Fitzgerald, and then I had to go to the bathroom. And you know the bathroom on a little boat is about as big as this little space here. So I was a little perturbed when I came out. And I walked back to my table, and those women had placed every rose. Each woman got a rose when she came on board. And they had placed every one of those roses in front of me.
Nice.
I didn't speak French well enough, merci, but I couldn't converse with them. Music is a universal language. And when people find out that you're a musician, they love you. This is children, men, women, old people. I don't care. Even I have been in situations where I know these people are racist. I know it. But I sing and the wall comes down. It comes down. So the impact of my being a musician has been the upliftment of my soul and my place on this planet.
What kind of experiences have you had, positive and negative, in all of these realms of I really want to say academia, but education and music?
Okay, well, let's talk about music first.
Fine.
There was an agent who was hiring black women vocalists at a club in Asia, in China. The stipulation was that it had to be a black woman vocalist. Mm-hmm. That's discrimination, but it's reverse discrimination. You see,
yeah.
So black women have really benefited. This little blue book that I wrote, Blues Women, the first civil rights workers. Think about that. This is Ma Rainey, Bessie Smith, Alberta Hunter, Billie Holiday. And they suffered tremendously in this country from discrimination. But they were still the first voices of civil rights. They were the ones who were able to wear the mask and complain about their situation. So music is a very powerful tool for delivering a message. So I wrote my doctoral dissertation, Women in Jazz, Music Publishing and Marketing. And I went to research how women are marginalized in the music industry. However, like everything else in life, I discovered 6 keys to success for women musicians, which are branding, marketing, teamwork, networking, accounting, and just knowing your craft. Well, negotiation. I discovered that women don't negotiate the way that men do. They accept Women are accepting. Men always say, well, can you give me a few dollars more for gas? Women don't say that. Okay, so they're not necessarily marginalized by men, they're marginalized by their lack of business skills. When you meet a woman in the music industry that has good business skills, she's successful. Aretha Franklin left $80 million to her family. You don't accumulate $80 million and not be a good businesswoman. However, Whitney Houston was not paying attention to her business. So, you weigh these things. You have to analyze these things. You can't just make blanket statements. No man kept me from doing anything that I wanted to do, including my 4 ex-husbands.
Whoa.
Because whenever somebody became abusive to me, I turned around and exit stage right. There are 7 billion people on the planet. There's 292 countries. Why would you stay where you're not wanted, where you're not loved, where you're not revered and valued? And when I went to Europe, I discovered that I was valuable there. And so I stayed there for a long time until they started wanting to pay me less money. But that was because Europe was going bankrupt and I had to get out. So I came back home. That's when I began to develop my teaching skills, because you don't make the money here that you make in Europe, but you do if you're a lecturer. So I began lecturing on women in music. Okay, well, you have to go back and ask yourself, why did they take music out of schools? Because music activates the right sector of the brain that makes you aggressive. Not bad aggressive, good aggressive.
Assertive.
Makes assertion. Makes you creative. Makes you imaginative. Makes you take the ideas out of your head and put them in the real world. So when they did that, they knew what they were doing. We seem to think that there's mysteries. There are no mysteries. This country was founded, and when I say this country, I really mean the United States of America Corporation. I don't mean the country was already here. I'm talking about the United States justice system that was set up to benefit a certain group and to negatively impact another group. So that's what we live in. Is it upside down, or is it beginning to turn around? Are people waking up? Are black women moving away from a religion that of the oppressor to the understanding that there's one in the White House could very well be the president of the United States? As a matter of fact, yesterday she was for 85 minutes. So, and then we have these divisions. She's Indian American, not American Indian, but Indian American. We put these labels on people. Labels are to the detriment of every human being, because each person is unique in themselves. So you might follow this crowd. Well, what we have is 10% of the planet are creatives. The other 90% are following the system. They agree with the system. They go with the system. They live in the system. They operate in the system. And they're stuck in the system. So when you talk about discrimination, you must be careful with this word, because I discriminated this morning about the earrings that I would put on. I discriminated about how I would wear my hair. So the word discrimination is bad. What it is when it does harm. The law of Ma'at from Egypt was do no harm. So if anything in your system harms anyone else, it is not good. And we have several laws on the books in this country that harm whole groups of people. So it's about people awakening to their own personal power.
Okay. You hear a lot about the
I teach my students that the 4 elements of ethics are morality, fairness, justice, and honesty. Honesty is comprised of sincerity, commitment, trustworthiness, and reliability. So I say to them, do you expect people to be honest with you? Are you honest with them? Are you sincere? Are you committed? Are you reliable? And can you be trusted? It's all about you. And we tend to, you see, I have a theory, starting with Greek philosophy, that logic is either inductive or deductive. Greek philosophy is deductive. Okay, that says all of this is out here, therefore I am. However, African philosophy and spirituality is based upon inductive reasoning, which is I am, therefore all of this is out here. So if you're not centered within yourself as the temple of the Spirit, you're lost out here looking for yourself. You must find your center. And for years I meditated, I read metaphysical material to get to who I am. It didn't just happen. I didn't just wake up one morning and be sure of who Joan Cartwright was. And I've changed my mind about a lot of things. So nothing is stagnant. Life is constantly moving and changing and turning you upside down. The question is, what do you do to get back on your feet? So the situation in the world is, we had a group of people in UK, which is a set of islands in Europe, off of the European continent. They were living on green rocks. It was cold. Survival is the intent of every being, every insect, every animal, every tree, every bush, every person. So I don't blame white people for wanting to survive. But I do say that your methods need to have been different. You don't go to Palmares in Brazil and slaughter 22,000 Quilombo Indians in a week because you want something. That's what the Portuguese did. You don't throw black bodies in mass graves on plantations because you don't value these people and think that there's no repercussion. We live in a world of retaliation. So what you put out is coming back to you or your children. Choose to do things. Be good to people so that people would be good to your children. But you weren't. And they're not. And your time of retaliation and reparations has come. You either step up to the plate and pay your dues, or you go down. And that is where we are. Remember, the Republican Party was the party of civil rights. They flipped. Now the Democrats are the party of civil rights. But are they? You know, you have to ask these questions. So why are black women having trust issues? Well, Tuskegee, syphilis investigation, the strange case of Henrietta Lacks. Okay, they took this woman's DNA that fought cancer, and they made billions of dollars off of this woman's DNA. Meanwhile, her family never got a penny. Even the woman that wrote the story turned on them and didn't give them some of the royalties. So we live in a country of liars, people who fabricate, who tell you one thing and do another. Look at television, look at the movies, look at the newspaper, look at the videos. Everybody's angry. Why? Because nobody can trust anybody. White women can't trust their white husbands, but women stay in these toxic relationships. Not just black women. You know, I have a friend, she was married to a man for 28 years, and she's beautiful. She's not big and overweight and sloppy. She's gorgeous. He left her for a younger woman. Now, with education, I did a very interesting experiment last week in my class. And I put on Roberta Flack's Trying Times that was written in 1969. And it's perfectly relevant to today. Mm-hmm. Then I played Les McCann's Compared to What? By Roberta Flack. Relevant. 1971. Relevant today. Then I played Marvin Gaye, What's Going On? Mm-hmm. Relevant. Right now, today. So, music is eternal.
Everything old is new again.
It's eternal. And it speaks to the society. No war has been started without a musician. But the musicians are not the warriors. They're not the warriors. But I was labeled the jazz warrior. That's another interview. Racism is not just the product of white men. White women benefit greatly from racism. So let's clear that up. Race itself was instituted in this country. Race did not exist before the United States. So do some research on that. Go find out how race was created, racial divisions. I'll tell you that the British originally indentured the service of Irishmen. But because they were the same complexion, they couldn't tell each other apart. That was when they decided to go get Africans, okay, to get black people to work for them, mainly because the Native Americans would die first. They're not going to work for you. So racism is a construct. However, if you don't communicate about something, it will fester. It will fester. And we live in a world where a 17-year-old boy was exonerated for killing 2 people in a state where he doesn't live, and his mother drove him there to do it. We live in a corrupt system that is not about the welfare of all people. So you have to be responsible for your own safety, your own sanity, and your own progress. And that's what Morgan is talking about. I don't concentrate on racism. Okay, I live in a completely white neighborhood, but my friends are black people, but I live here. Okay, so I have friends here too. and they don't do me any harm. So what are you doing to put yourself in a safe position? And I think that's what he means. Now it translates into entitlement.
Right.
I'm entitled to whatever I think that I want. I'm entitled to it. But not at your expense. And so what was the reason? What was the one instrument that made the European supreme? And it was a gun. Okay.
Weapon.
Gunpowder came from China. They use it for entertainment. But the European found a way to use it, to weaponize it. And that's what Europeans did. They weaponized everything. That's what they do here. They weaponize children. Okay? But do other people, Vietnamese, weaponize their children, put bombs on their children? So the other problem is there is no such thing as race. Race is a construct. There's the human race. And then we have different colors. Well, there's different colors of cats and dogs. Do they discriminate against each other? No, it's about power. It's about power. It's only about power. But when people who are vicious and vile toward other people understand that they are creating that situation for themselves and for their children, they will change. But when is that going to happen? White people are not the only people that have been violent.
Oppressors.
Yes. They learn that. My daughter is vehement about the fact that white people just improved upon the violence of black people that they cause towards each other. Well, what is tribalism? Family, it's all family. See, when we start putting labels on things, you're going to tell me that the English aren't tribal?
Yeah.
The French aren't tribal? And what is this about the French collecting reparations from the people that they oppressed?
Haiti.
You know, that's some really... You have to think... No, but you got to think about the mindset of the people that paid them. Because if you come in my house and you're going to destroy my house, take everything I got, and then I tell you, no, you're not coming in my house. And then you tell me, well, you owe me a tax because I can't come and steal from you. What kind of idiot are you that you pay that tax?
Right.
That's my question. Right. And I have been asking Haitian people that because I'm infuriated. Why would you pay people that oppressed you? So somebody give me that answer.
I think it was a buy-off to be left alone.